Okay, so my wife likes scary movies. And so the other day she said, Shaun, she was like, let's go through Netflix and find some scary movies. So we're going through scary movies, horror films, and we're not seeing anything that's like really jumping out at us. And I said, well, let's find something that I can talk about in a like a retro review. So she's like, okay, fine. So which one? And right away I saw the cover on Netflix for Hellraiser, the 1987 Hellraiser. And I was like, oh man, I remember that when I was a kid. I guess I was like 13 years old when it came out. And I was like, this movie is so good. You are going to love this movie. It's going to scare you to pieces. And so she's like, okay, I've never seen it. I said, yes, it they made Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. They did all these. I said, but recently they made like a knockoff Hellraiser movie with this really weird Ninja Turtle looking pinhead character. She didn't understand what I was talking about, but I said, look, all right, we're going to watch Hellraiser. So we watched this film. Now it was written and directed by Clive Barker. It starred Andrew Robinson, who's been in millions of things on television and films. But the one thing that I always remembered him for was he played the killer in the original 1970 something Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood. He was the one when Clint Eastwood had the gun and was like, did I have 3 bullets? Did you count 6 bullets or did I shoot 5? And so do you feel lucky, punk? He's the punk that reaches for the gun and gets shot and blown off the... Anyway, so Andrew Robinson's in the film. Clare Higgins is in the film too as well, with all of her beautiful, crazy, giant 80s hairstyle that she had. She looked like she was pulled right out of Ghostbusters. She was Gozer when the hair was up like that. But anyway, Clare Higgins was in that. She was also in Hellraiser 2. Ashley Lawrence was in the film, and she kind of made a thing where she had and appeared in several other Hellraisers. But she's been in a ton of stuff too. You check out these people on IMDb. Ashley Lawrence, Clare Higgins, Andrew Robinson. As soon as you see their faces, you're going to go, I've seen them in like 100 things. So Doug Bradley is in the film, and he's the man, the demonic Centibite with the visual effects makeup on and the pins. They call him Pinhead. And he is the leader of the demonic Centibites, the other creatures that are in this sadomasochistic hell where, the power of an orgasm, the rush you get from an orgasm is the same as being tortured. And so, anyway, you can get to this realm through this puzzle box. And it's got little circles on it and things like that. And if you rub them a certain way, it'll start, the puzzle box comes open, it goes to a different position, it locks back down, and it opens up these gateways to hell. And basically these, leather-bound, disfigured creatures called the Cenobites come out, and they're like, what is your pleasure? Feel the pain. It's the same as the sex. And it's basically is what they're saying. So there's this one character, Frank, who is the brother that Andrew Robinson plays, and he's like a bad boy. So, we're watching him in all his bad boy glory. He likes to have sex with lots of women, and he's probably like a criminal. He travels the world, does funky stuff. And anyway, so he kind of seduces Andrew Robinson's wife-to-be, and he winds up having sex with her because she just, for whatever reason, it's like she's marrying Andrew Robinson's character. Clare Higgins is marrying him. He's the safe guy, the guy that makes the money, the guy that'll be there for you and have the house with the white picket fence. But she's got this thing for the bad boy. So she bangs the brother, and she always forever remembers it. So what happens is there's this house that's shared by the two brothers, and I think the mother owned it and she died and it was willed and left to them. But for whatever reason, Frank, the brother, kind of disappeared because he's off having all these sexcapades. That's hard to say, sexcapades. With all these women and doing all this torturous shit all around the world. And then he wants to find the ultimate stuff. So he finds this little Asian character that is selling the box. Would you like to have some torture? Would you like to, what is your pleasure? And he gives him the box and he gives him money for it. And anyway, he opens it and he winds up going to hell and gets torn apart. Well, the house, kind of where he was doing all the ritualistic stuff, is the house that is now abandoned that the family is moving into. So they move into the house, and the one brother cuts his hand, gets while moving a mattress. He gets a nail from a door frame caught in his hand, and it rips back, and the blood falls on the hardwood floor and absorbs into the floor, and then helps bring Frank back to life. But first, he's like this legless thing. He's just bones. He looks like a skeleton, and he starts calling out to the one character, the wife, and he was like, I need more blood, and then I could be whole again. Bring me another victim. So she seduces men, brings him to the house, and then hits him over the head with a hammer, and then he just starts sucking them, sticking his fingers in their neck and sucking out all their blood. And then every time he does it, his skin is repairing himself, and he's trying to get to his former self, this one former self. Well, it never works out now, does it? So as the killing keeps going on, the daughter, played by Ashley Lawrence, starts to be a little suspicious about what's going on and wants to check in on the stepmother to see where she's at. She's not coming out of the house anymore. And that's because she's been luring guys back there to seduce them and then just to kill them and give the blood to Frank. And he talks like that the whole time. Who's Frank? Hey, Frank. This guy who played him, he wasn't the actor that played Frank physically. He was this really skinny, I think his name was Oliver. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let me just tell you, this character, Christy, finds the box, opens it up, and then gets sucked into another dimension. And then Pinhead's like, hey, here I am. What is your pleasure? We're going to show you everything. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Frank, he got out. She basically rats out Frank and says he got out. So the Cenobites are like, oh, Frank, no one escapes us. How did this happen? So they want to show up and take Frank back to hell because he escaped hell. So long story short, that all goes down. But here's the killer for me. All right. I had not seen this movie since 1987. And as a 13-year-old, this movie rocked. Okay. I was like, this movie's great. There's horror, there's blood, there's guts, there's sex, I mean, as a kid, I was into Nightmare on Elm Street. I was into the Jason films. I was into Sleepaway Camp, all those movies. Let me tell you something, fellas, ladies out there. Hellraiser 1987 doesn't really hold up very well over time. The practical effects are pretty good, pretty damn good. The makeup effects on these actors, the pinheads, the other Cenobites, Chatterbox, guys like that. He's like this, and he does like chattering. That guy. And then there's a chick with this wire going through her mouth. Look, all that stuff is great. The creature that's looks like someone's pushing it on a cart down a hallway, and it's like bleh. That okay. Those look cool. But back then, they didn't have CGI, so they used a lot of what they call optical effects. Now, there were movies back in the 80s, like Ghostbuster, that used optical effects very well because they had big budgets. But 1987 Hellraiser did not really have a good budget because the optical effects that they laid in over some of the scenes where the box is like glowing and searing your fingers and things like that, it was like cartoon optical effects. Yeah, it just, if anyone needed to George Lucas this movie and do a special edition, I would be all for like a special edition on Hellraiser, just to get some of those optical effects that just looked so bad. Like when they shot the box at Pinhead and he's to go send him back to hell. The optical like lightning that goes through his face. It's bad. But overall, look, I really enjoyed Hellraiser as a kid. I kind of enjoyed it this time. The editing pace is so slow. It's so 1980s. It's just these things drag. These long shots just drag, and you're going like this. And I really felt bad that I dragged my wife through 1987 Hellraiser. And before we had started playing Hellraiser, I told her, I said, well, they even have Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. So we got to watch that next, right after this. I was like, it's going to be great. And, but no, I wasn't going to put her through that again. So look, it has a special place in my heart. It really does. Um, the practical effects are awesome, but I mean, it's a dated film. It just feels dated. So I don't know if there's any more ground I can cover on Hellraiser 1987. But it's a horror film. Some nasty crap goes down in this movie. If you are into stuff like the Evil Dead movies, Sleepaway Camp, the Freddy Krueger, we're talking Nightmare on Elm Street, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. You're gonna like this movie. And if you're a hardcore fan, dude, don't be mad if I came down on the movie in any way, shape, or form that like really made you mad. Look, I have a special place in my heart for Hellraiser, but I had not watched it in a long time, and it wasn't what I remember. So that's my little review on Hellraiser 1987. It's rated R. It's not for kids. There's some nasty stuff that goes down. There's some sex. There's some torture. There's rats that are nailed to a wall, dripping blood. And then this one guy, Oliver, fillets a rat, and the fur flips over. I mean, there's some nasty stuff that goes on. It's not for kids. And maybe I shouldn't have seen it at 13 years old. That's what my wife said. She said, why did you see that? I said, well, I saw The Exorcist when I was 8. And she's like, no, our kids are not going to see that. Anyway, enough about that. If you like this video, like it, share it, comment on social media. If you love Hellraiser, tell me about it. Tell me your experiences. And have you watched it lately to see if it holds up? I want to know. Subscribe to the channel, share this all over the place, and I'll see you on the next retro review.